Howdy, everybody. Bob Tallman for No Spin Rodeo. No politics, no BS, just hard-hitting news and rodeo commentary from two of the most trusted sources in our sport. Kendra Santos, Tommy Joe Lucia. Listen up. Here we go.
Good frosty morning. Tommy Joe Lucia here. Kendra Santos, Greg Teagarden. This is No Spin Rodeo. It's episode number 47. And as Flint would say, we are one of millions of podcasters out there in the rodeo game that play the game. But we're glad that you listen to us, and we're glad you're a No Spinner. Well, let's kick it off this morning because I'm completely not prepared, which is bad. That means that there's holes in my filter, so I haven't thought about what I shouldn't say. But let's kick it off with coffee time. Let's figure out where everybody's at. Let's tell all of our people that listen to us where we're at currently. Kendra, are you at home?
California, our water troughs are frozen right now too. But the weather's been a little wild everywhere, I think. I don't know what it's doing in Denver today, but like Oat has been having unusual snow in Chakota, Oklahoma. It's been cold everywhere. It's really cold in Texas right now. What about Denver?
It's typical Denver. Don and I live in the RV on the west side of the Coliseum until it gets to 0. And then we go to a motel room. Greg's at a motel room here in Denver, and we moved to the motel room the last 4 days, and the trailer's still frozen. We came back today, but it's supposed to get up to 42. The parking lot back here where all the contestants park, there's not a drain. So Don and I were talking about when this stuff melts and then refreezes tonight, you possibly could ice skate on it, I'm betting. So it's walking through the barns every day. You know, Greg and I are both here. He can tell you a little bit about it. We live in the Coliseum here, or the Denver Coliseum at the National Western, and so we've been immersed in everything from Colorado versus the world to the Mexican rodeo to 5 brackets of PRCA Progressive Rodeo, an Equicross event, MLK last night. So what did I miss, Greg?
The PBR. We did 3 PBRs.
Oh, the PBR. Yeah, we did PBR. So we've got, what's today? Tuesday. We're out of here Sunday. We've got, I don't know, 8 or 10 or 12 more performances of PRCA events. To do one perf tonight, which allowed both of us to jump onto the podcast. One of the few days here that we don't do 2 or 3 performances a day. And the crowds have been big, and God's been very good to us because so far my crew has not gotten sick. And usually that's what we're worried about, is who's going to get sick to the point where they can't work that night. And knock on something, we've made it. And you can see I've got my appropriately colored Colorado beanie on because it's all inclusive, which Denver is.
Skating rink in the Cowboy parking lot, that it might be a good time to take your saddle to the barn and also not ride to the arena. Maybe lead your horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a big door back there with the big, if you've been to all these things become kind of impressioned in you, but this big giant double door with the big metal handle. And, that's part of what makes it nostalgic, right? Greg, what about you? What's your take on Denver so far, the National Western?
It's just cold. Our trailer's out back behind the Coliseum, and it's only like a 100-foot walk, but by the time you get to the door, you're freezing, and it's snowed, and it's starting to get icy out there now. So we've been, trying to get melt put down so we can get the ice down. But the shows have been pretty good. The rodeo's been pretty good. We've been having a great time in the truck. So, all in all, it's been, a positive experience here.
Our immunities are strong after kicking the NFR crud, right? Surely people don't just go get sick right back to back like that.
Yeah, they pretty much do. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, because we go back to like the more temperate, in Texas and North Carolina, and then you come back here to the cold and it just punches you right in the gut. So
Yeah.
I almost had something at the beginning, but I was able to knock it off before it got too crazy. So
But it's a
Yeah.
dry cold.
yeah,
Yeah, that makes
very
it so
dry.
much better. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes it so much better. Yeah. But no, it's good. And in Denver every year, what amazes me when I sit there and watch, I don't know, I think I calculated it, 900 hours of rodeo or something. Maybe that's wrong, but it was something staggering. The amount of new blood that's out there, and these bareback riders that I've never heard of, bull riders that I've never heard of, bronc riders that I've never heard of, that I mean ride, right? Like they're not maybe good, and put on some really good rides. And then I was thinking to myself, but then I don't. Some of these I don't see them again, so I wonder if it's just not first, because it's the grind. If you see these guys in July, then they've actually made it. They're but there's always some people that I in the timed events. I sit right over the timed events, and the cattle have been tough. The bulldog and cattle have been tough, nasty. The calves are big and kick harder than I've seen calves kick in a long time. I mean, there's been more trouble uh, tying calves by pros. I mean, the real deal guys so far. But and now the calves are starting. It looks like they're probably back into their second run as a pin. I don't know where they're at. I don't pay attention to any of that, but they do look like they're becoming a little more trained. So it's been a good rodeo. Their attendance has been really, really strong, and the action in the arena has been good. We've rode bulls every night, right? Haven't we, Greg? We haven't had a night where we threw everybody off. That's always good. So
Yeah,
it,
no, it was a good. We were almost. What was it? I don't know if it was the afternoon perf yesterday. We almost rode every bull.
oh, and the MLK rodeo, which you kind of never know what's going to happen. They rode three bulls, Kendra, like rode three bulls in it. So that was or four. I don't know. It was good. It was great. It was good. So that's what we're doing. What are you doing? Surfing all of the current stories. Now you've got to bring this up. You are days from a new family member, right? Is that correct?
I'm leaving my house at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning to get on an airplane. So one of these days is very exciting. So, yep.
That's super cool.
It's awesome.
Super cool.
Thanks.
Well, pray for health and safety of that new one coming into the world. All right. Well, that's a
Thank
good
you.
coffee time. I gotta look. Kendra, lead me through because, like I said, I'm terribly
It's all
underpaid. Are
good.
we, are, are we
I
doing feedback now?
No,
No. Okay.
I wanted to um I've been wondering, I think a lot of people have, about our newly crowned world champion bull rider. And so I just picked up the phone and called Josh Frost, and we're just going to let you know, spinners, listen in on our call. I there were so many things on this brief call that I didn't know, and pretty cool. So anyway, here it is. We'll let you guys just listen to it with us. Okay. Talk to me. I just wanted to kind of have a catch-up call with you. You just won your first gold buckle riding with a torn rotator cuff and labrum in your riding arm, right?
Correct.
Which is your left arm. Is it true that that's better news than if it was your free arm?
Yes. Yes. It's
Because you can keep it down.
yep. Yep. Hurts getting off sometimes, or if it gets lifted, but the actual riding part didn't cause any pain whatsoever.
Okay. Was there a certain rodeo or ride when that happened, or was it like cumulative that happened over time?
It was a certain specific hang up, Woodstown, Piles Grove, New Jersey's Extreme Bulls, hung
Which
up
were,
and then rode my. Go ahead.
when was that?
It's like second week of August.
Wow. In New Jersey?
Yep. Yeah, they've had the Woodstown Rodeo forever, and they added it. They've got a big Extreme Wolf with it now. One weekend in August, they do it on a Monday, Tuesday.
Gotcha.
Added like it might have had like 50,000 added. It was quite the deal.
Wow, I went there one time a long time ago, and I just thought it was beautiful country. I didn't know there was so much beautiful, wide open, beautiful
Well,
country.
I'm same as you. Completely caught me off guard. I rode in Brooklyn at the PBR the weekend before, and drove down through Philadelphia, and you get 45 minutes out of Philadelphia, and it's like, holy cow, place is beautiful.
It
Like
really is.
I could live here. Like that's how pretty it was.
Oh my God. Okay. Talk about the lengths that you went to try and avoid surgery, because you took a trip to Mexico, right? And wasn't there some special rehab with a Canadian connection where you were trying everything that you could think of internationally and beyond to avoid surgery, right?
Yep, yep. I did. I'd been to Mexico before. Get stem cells actually in the shoulder once earlier in the year, and then I was fighting a bad back injury this winter, and so that was where I'd originally kind of found that option, and so I'd went for the shoulder, and then had got I work with Paige Lawrence Champion. It's Richie Champion's wife. She's does my mental coaching stuff, and she had introduced me to one of her friends in Canada that was a really good physical therapist, and so
Did you
got hooked up
go
with
to
her.
Canada for that, or you
I
just thought?
did it. I did it. We did it all through videos and FaceTime and stuff, and she was able to
I gotcha.
get me dialed in pretty good.
And
And
Richmond's wife, by the way, Paige, is an Olympic ice skater. That's kind of cool.
yes,
Um, so you did everything you possibly could, but in the end, like, okay, so in the end, you had to go forward. But before we get there, how hard was it to like suck it up and grit and grind your way through the finals? Like, did it hinder you, or was it more a matter of pain management?
I had it feeling so good, and through the course of the physical therapy, like it had dislocated on me probably 5 times in November
Ugh,
through the course of working out. There was times during my physical therapy it came out if I pushed too hard. Also had it happen on one practice full, and then I also jumped off a fence. So like I kind of knew it wasn't stable, but within 12 hours it would feel great again.
I gotcha.
And so I was very much went into the finals like knowing that it needed to be taken care of, and I did a really good job. Like it didn't hurt me once until the 8th round. I got hung up getting off that bull, and
Mm,
or made the whistle, hand hung, shoulder slipped out on that one. But so I was. That being said, it was very happy with how it held up through the finals. So
okay, so you had scheduled surgery before you went to Vegas?
yep, I'd called and scheduled surgery, and I went and seen Dr. Murray in August right after it happened, and more or less he kind of was like, "You need surgery. Get through the NFR. Get it fixed."
Gotcha.
Um,
What was
and so
so you had the surgery in Utah, in Salt Lake?
yeah,
What was the date of that?
uh, December 19th.
Oh, right after the finals.
Yeah, I actually stopped and seen him. We drove home from Vegas Monday morning and stopped in Salt Lake on the way to get a pre-op, and I was kind of hoping that I kind of knew it wasn't healed because it had still been dislocating, but went in and had him look at it, kind of told him everything I'd done, and props to my physical therapist, because talking to her before, she was like, "Oh yeah, you're not going to need surgery. We're going to get it feeling 100%." And then when I decided to have surgery, this was after the NFR, she's like, "Oh yeah, you most definitely need surgery." And so I thought it was interesting how she helped convince me that I was going to be fine.
She was in cahoots with her friend Paige.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Uh,
what what exactly did the surgery entail? I'll also ask you, besides what exactly Dr. Murray did, I will say that Tandy has always told me that rotator cuff surgery is the most painful, miserable of all to recover from. Is that true?
well, this is my first time ever having my shoulder done. It's been decently smooth so far. And I think all the physical therapy I did before probably has helped, because I'm right at 4 weeks now, and my range of motion is where it's supposed to be at 6 weeks already. My range of motions came back very quick, and I'm still wearing the sling, not using the muscle, but at 6 weeks I can start out of the sling and start using it. And so I'm talking to the physical therapist I've been going to. They're very happy with how everything's recovering so far. I'm ahead of schedule. So
It pays to be fit. So what exactly did Dr. Murray, are there like screws in there now? What did he have to do?
from what I understand, I think he did like 4 anchors on the rotator cuff and then like 4 or 5 just on the labrum. Sounded like they were up, like they put the anchors in the bone and then stitch around it and suck that muscle back together. And same thing with the labrum. And he's able to do it all orthoscopic, so I don't even got a scar really.
Oh, that's amazing. That I think is a huge part of perhaps minimizing the pain if there's any way to do that, right? Instead of having that huge incision.
Yep.
Okay. And so you have started rehab. What's that like? What do they have you doing at this point?
They've just been stretching it for me. I started 2 weeks afterwards, and like I said, I'm not supposed to use, like, I'm not moving anything on my own. I lay on the table, he picks me up and stretches and moves it around, and then they gave me some exercises at the house I do twice a day, but similar deal. Like, I'm stretching it, but I'm not actually activating any of the muscles.
I gotcha. Okay, so are they telling you like as far as ETA on getting back to work, are they saying approximately 6 months? I feel like that's
Yeah,
standard.
yeah. I'm planning on June 19th. He said I'm pretty confident I'm going to be feeling like I can get on before that, but I'm going to
Is
shoot
that
for.
is does that coincide with like Reno or something? What is you have an
Yeah,
event? Yeah,
yeah. Looking at it, should be right back at. Like I said, I think Reno's Extreme Bowls is usually that week, and
I gotcha.
or start of Reno, and so I guess that would be the tentative goal, depending on how everything's feeling. But
I feel
with how the
like
first 3 weeks of physical therapy have been going, I see it progressing very relatively quickly. So
that's awesome. There's only so much you can do to speed up the healing process, but the pre injury fitness it really does move the needle. And I also feel like using like one example that quickly comes to mind of last year when Ty Erickson was rolling and then he wrecked his ankle at Clovis, and I feel like him having a specific event in mind, like that really helped him with his working so hard at rehab. Like he just wanted to do everything he could think to do to he kept his eye on the ball, and the ball was on Calgary, coming back for Calgary, which was so cool. And those comeback stories are so fun to write, like he wins Calgary coming back. But so having that, I feel like that specific event that like your eyes on the prize of, okay, Reno, you know what it feels like to walk into that rodeo and those sunsets there, and the silver spurs and all that. Like that's a motivator, right?
yeah, most definitely.
Okay. Well, I mean, I know you're a bright side guy, but how are you handling this rodeo roller coaster ride?
It's kind of one of those ones it couldn't have happened at a better time. Like, again, that was my, not to say my big, what I was scared of, but like I knew I needed surgery, but I was set up so good to be the world champion this year. It was really going to make surgery hurt a lot worse if I would have, if I end up second place.
Right.
And then you're second 4 years in a row, and now you're out 6 months. But to be able to stay locked in and get the gold buckle, it was like good, perfect. We've accomplished a goal we've been working on for a long time, and now we can get the shoulder healed up. I got a 4-month-old baby at the house. Like, if there's a time to be stuck home for 6 months, now's the time.
Miss
And so,
Baby Joan and Erica.
yeah,
And you just gave me little chills here when you said when you were talking about the world title, because like selfishly speaking, just from my inside my own mind, I'm like I feel like I just waited 37 years for another gold buckle round of frost fever, right? And but that your whole family won that world title. Like that's how I looked. That's just how I saw it coming the whole time. Like, Joe was supposed to have at least one, and it just felt like it was all of you.
I, you couldn't have said it any better. And in my induction speech, I made sure to try to thank everybody. But that's what, like I said, a lot of people don't realize, like the team that it's took to get here. Like, I've been working at this since I was 6 years old, but we've riding bulls is a family deal for the Frost family, and to see my brother be so close, and then for me to be so close so many times, like there's been a lot of brainstorming hours and practice bulls bucked and barrel drills and just everybody putting their heads together to figure out how to help get me to that gold buckle, and we did it. So
It's just it couldn't be sweeter. You and Joe have something special planned soon for Clyde and Elsie's in Lane, Oklahoma. Do you not?
we do. We finally got her put together. October, we're going back to Lane's Arena and doing a bull riding school.
That's so cool. I feel the first time that like Clyde walked me down to the barn and stuff, and it's like there were little etchings where Lane had been naughty and written little things. I feel like he carved some stuff into the wood or something like down at the barn and everything. And that's just like hallowed ground. It's magic, and it's super cool. But I know how much it means, all these years that I've seen Clyde and Elsie sitting down there behind those buck and shoots, and this is just such a bright, happy moment in time for them too. So anyway, life's amazing, isn't it, Josh?
It is. It
Yeah,
is.
it's pretty cool. Well, I'm thrilled for you. I'm happy you're on the mend. I'm glad you've got it taken care of. I think about a guy like Shad Mayfield right now, who I know he's fighting. I think now more than just his hips, but he just won Odessa. So now what's he supposed to do? It's
Yeah.
like, when's a good time to pull up when you're on a roll? I don't know. So
Yeah.
anyway, well, I appreciate the visit. Thanks so much, and happy rehabbing.
Thanks, Kendra.
All
It's
right,
great talking
Josh.
to you.
You too. Thanks. Take care.
Kendra, you always bring the gold. You're the one that can pick up the phone and talk to the people, and they actually talk to you, the athletes in this sport. That's why you're so critical in our sport. What a cool thing! Lots of stuff in there, right? Lots of stuff we didn't know about. That's
Lots of stuff I
interesting.
didn't know about it, and I keep pretty close tabs on the frost. So anyway, I really enjoyed the visit.
Well, we hope that the no spinners did also. We'll try to keep bringing you cool stuff like that. They don't talk to me. Cowboys don't talk to me, and that's okay. Um, other people occasionally do. They say it has to do with the look on my face is not welcoming. But that's okay. You want now, Kendra? Like I said, I'm unprepared. You ready for some feedback?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, Greg, you want to read us the first feedback, and we'll respond.
Yeah, sure. So our first feedback comes from Gordon, Nebraska. I started listening to your podcast during the finals, enjoyed it immensely. In my opinion, a deep dive into the politics of the yearly PRCA awards would be really interesting. Why Rodeo Rapid City beats the larger Texas rodeos year after year, why John Harrison wins all the clown awards every year, why Frontier wins stock contractor of the year all the time. Not trying to be controversial, but I think folks who don't understand the game may have questions to why. Happy New Year.
Okay, say that was. It looks like that came from Gordon, Nebraska, which I'll
Yep.
say. Gordon, Nebraska is this tiny, cute little town. I've been there without his family moved there from South Dakota when he was in eighth grade. It's an adorable little country town. Anyway, tell me, Joe, I think you should take first swing at this one.
Oh,
Politics.
imagine that. Imagine that. Yeah. Thanks, Kendra. Oftentimes I've wondered, it's a voting thing. And there are winners that work harder to remind people to vote than others. Um, I've even heard of emails getting sent to potential voters, and I'm not going to mention any names, that was the exact same email that the person voting got the year earlier with a change of date. Hey, what you been doing? Da da da. And the email was exactly the same, right? It's like, oh, it's time to send out my emails for voting for XYZ of the year.
Well,
I've always,
I'll ta
yeah.
let me take it one step lower than that. One step lower than that for me is having your freaking wife call around. Will you vote for my husband? Seriously? because that happens. And I'm so embarrassed for the people who will allow that to happen. But go ahead.
Well, and I've said all along, there are times when I think the right people win. There are times when I think they don't. I think this probably happens globally in awards competitions, right? And there are there are people that probably should win. There are rodeos that probably should win that don't. I've always said I think it's a conflict of interest if a cowboy can sell a patch to a stock contractor, right? I think that's a conflict of interest. I mean, but or it'd be the same thing as selling a patch to a judge. Um, but and that's probably not the same thing. But so it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. It's how the world works, right? It's how the world works, and there's not metrics. There's not metrics that are attached to these awards. Technically, it's a person's opinion and their willingness to get out and vote, and those that rally their voters the best. That's it.
I'll
What
say this. Well, the years ago when I worked in the PRCA office, I think it's still the case. The actual voting numbers were pretty low. I totally agree with you that I think it's funky for cowboys and cowgirls to be wearing a producer's stock contractor's patch as a sponsor is funky. I think it's funky when stock contractors pay certain contestants entry fees. That just doesn't feel right.
mm-mm.
But I
Yeah.
mean, what do I know? But that feels weird. It feels a little sketch.
What
Yeah.
is the
I
impact? What is the impact of the award on a person, like in the industry? For example, I can understand like certain, like clowns probably has a bigger impact saying you're clown of a year, but like stock contractor, does that have any business effect on how you go out and sell your business to different rodeos?
Oh, I think absolutely. I think I think that perception is reality within our game. I think a lot of contracts are awarded because guys have won personnel awards. So I think it has a positive impact on you. But I think being in the top five does also, right? I think top five, if you look at the top fives, usually there's not very often that I look at the top fives and think that you know somebody may have been left out. And that's not. And again, I'm going to say this. I'm not saying that everybody that won or didn't win didn't deserve it. I have my opinions on all of it. We all have our opinions. I do think some are deserving of it. Others, it's to me what I would like to see is the same thing I'd like to see in the U.S. Congress, and that is after you're there and on there so long, you cap out, dude. Now, the flip side of that is that's not fair. If you're still the best and people are willing to vote for you, you should continue to win. So I'm not going to say that I have a downright solution, but it is interesting that the same people win a lot. Absolutely.
There was a time
Absolutely.
way, way, way long ago. That was and my first time that I worked for the PRCA when Harry Vold was winning the stock contractor of the year every year, and I loved the Duke. But I remember at one time just wondering if if and it didn't make any sense. It's like the best man should win every time. So that's all great. But I started to wonder if like, gosh, would it be, when somebody wins something just over and over and over and over and over, like should there be like term limits or something? Because I just, some it's especially you can have thoughts like that, especially if there are really great people in the mix that everybody agrees are at least equally as good, if not better. And so and then when it's just like on you know a return reel all the time, it just is like, yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
And they a couple things that I think are interesting to add to this feedback is that the PRCA has done a good job in their or getting better in their IT department. You're able to vote online, which I'm sure has increased the voting, right? I assume has decreased the fraud. It's an assumption. And the second thing is I produce the awards banquet, as you know, and so I'm going to pitch this out here to the no spinners for feedback. But I'm interested in Kendra, your input and Greg's in this because this is always a discussion for me, and that is um, top five of, let me make it, that's clown of the year. Should we bring all five of them on stage? And
Uh,
no, hold. Okay, you're going to get your turn so that they get the recognition that they deserve for being in the top five, or is it really a humiliation thing when you got to shake the same guy's hand and walk off the stage? What say you? What say you, no spinners? But what say you, Kendra and Greg?
I hate that for people because I think it's so awkward. It's like it kind of reminds me of a beauty pageant when the winner is like, and everybody else is like, oh, get me out of here. I just want to disappear. I feel bad when I see that. I feel bad for those people because it's like, okay, everybody knows it's on the big screens. And hey, this year there was even big screens across the hallway in a whole nother, banquet room or whatever. There's a lot of eyes on this. It's on TV too. And so you're up there and it's a close up on your face. And then you don't win. It's like I just see the body language. So many of those people are like slinking off. And I appreciate the thought of saying, well, it gives them a day in the sun. But to me, the it's embarrassing. Kind of like, okay, loser, get off the stage because they're immediately supposed to be whisked off. And it's just feels bad to me.
If you're in the top
Oh,
five, you're a winner to me. What do you think, Greg?
I agree with that. But I just think it's awkward. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, it is.
So I think we need to recognize the top five people. I like them being up there, and you see this group of people that have done, a great job over the past year to get to that position. And the only thing is like if you're one of those people and you're not going to win because it's always the same group or person that wins every year, I can see where it could be a little bit of a, like a falsehood. But I think if it was more, if more people got into it and it was a little bit more of a guessing game on who was going to be the winner, then I definitely think that everybody should be able to, be seen and see who they are. And, and that also leads to the point that, if you're a rodeo committee sitting in that room or watching it on the Cowboy channel and you see somebody up there that was at your rodeo and they're the top five, then you're probably going to hire them again.
And we
Yeah.
could do it.
Hey,
We could do it with photos. It's also operational because if you remember, there was a time that every winner got up from their table and walked to the stage, which added about an hour to the awards deal. Because by the time you high five and hug Aunt Bethel and kiss Sarah Lou, and so maybe we look at putting them at a holding area, right, where it's a quick shot of them, all five, right? And they're not on stage, with a backdrop, and then follow the winner onto the stage or something. But I think it's worth conversation. I think it's
are
worth
there
conversation.
people who actually go to great expense that wouldn't make that huge trip to Las Vegas, or is everybody there for the convention anyway? Or are there people who go all the way there and then they lose? I don't know.
Well, and again, so it's personal narrative here. The whole family comes there in case you win. And I'll tell you the other thing that's interesting. I have personal experience with this with my dad. My dad was nominated for Contract Act of the Year. I don't even know how many times. And it gets to the point that you lose so much, and I bet there's some no spinners out there, that you really don't think you're going to win, right? You don't, it really doesn't even, and that's why occasionally you'll see someone come on the stage and win that is ultimately shocked, right? Like, and that's great TV. It's great emotion. Like they really, it's not oh, I can't believe I won. I can't believe no, it's oh my God, I won is
No,
this real?
that is super cool. Remember though, years ago, was it Tallman who kept getting announcer of the year and got up one year and finally said, enough's enough. I'm not winning this next year. Vote for somebody else. Was that Tallman? I think it was.
I
Uh,
think it might have been. Yeah.
Anyway, but we better
Well,
keep rolling.
yeah.
Yep.
Feedback number two, T
All
Garden.
right. This one's from Salinas, California. Sure love the
Love
10
Salinas.
daily broadcasts and wrap ups. Was upstairs at the convention every morning and couldn't get down to see y'all in person, but they loved the podcast. No bull, no filter. Keep producing them, please. Oh, and who won the tattoo league?
I'll
Oh,
go. I'll go
go.
because it's funny to me anyway from NFR 2024. Jeff Metters won it, okay? And I didn't realize till after the run of the NFR. In my phone, right, obviously next to each other are Jeff Metters and Jeff Medlin. Medlin being my NFR team repper friend whose kid Logan was doing all kinds of good at the finals this year. And I didn't realize till the run of the finals was over the poor Jeff Metters, I was blowing him up every night that Logan Medlin would do good. I'm sitting there texting from the seats to Jeff Medlin, I think, and talking to him about his kid's horse cantina. Meanwhile, Metters is in the booth, like, why is Kendra talking to me about the bar? She knows I'm on TV right now. Anyway, oops. Okay. First place, Metters in the Tattoo League. Last place, Everything Rodeo. I'm not sure who that is. But I will say this for Team No Spin. Tommy Joe finished seventh, and I finished ninth, which couple
Which
of
was an amazing comeback because you
top
were looking
teners.
like ink for the first 5 days, 4 days. It was looking like you could be stamped.
Okay, yes. And in the beginning, there were some knockdown barrel issues. Ultimately, what got me was my one event, what I went with a sentimental pick instead of being an assassin. And next time I'm just going to be an assassin because my one pick where I'm like, oh, but he high school rodeo. Stop it, Kendra. The pick you should have made because you had the money to do it would have
Yeah.
ended up with first place. But whatever. I think both of us being top 10 is respectable.
It
Yes.
is. It's good. It's good.
That's
All
a
right.
fun deal.
It is
Anyway,
great. Yeah. And
roll
and
on.
you're good. Keep going. What you got,
Okay, this
Greg?
this one's coming from 502 area code. Why do they make it so hard to see special events like the American or the Kid Rock Rodeo? I can't even find a post saying where it's at. I'm looking I am looking for it. How are you going to get new fans if who have to stumble across it?
Well,
I'm just saying, don't feel alone. Um,
Yeah.
this is
yeah.
I've covered rodeo all day, every day for the better part of 40 years, and I fill in the dark sometimes. What do you think, Tommy Joe?
Well, I think this plays into what I think we're going to talk about for the rest of this podcast. Um, yeah, we feel the same way. We are just waiting to find out, is this approved? Is it not approved? What's it's on? What is it? Where is it on TV? Is it on TV? No, it's not on TV. Where do you find it? You got the PBR deal out there where, you know, Merritt Street and Dr. Phil, and then no Dr. Phil, and the PBR was doing a really strong promotion here to say you can find us on our YouTube channel and all over the place. And we know that the PBR has. So here's some of the backline stuff. The PBR has a relationship with the WCRA and the Kid Rock Rodeo, and they have a relationship with CBS. Okay, so most of the CBS content is driven by partnerships in and around the PBR. Now, Teton Ridge, the new owner of the Cowboy channel, is used. I'm 90% sure they're using the Fox platform, regional sports, for covering the qualifiers. And remember, that's the tough thing because we did regional sports in some of my other lives with rodeo, and Fox Regional's great, but you can get bumped all over. So even if they wanted to tell you exactly when they're going to air on Fox Regional, they don't usually know till really late in the game, right? Because if this team wins in that region, then all of a sudden they take your spot and rodeo gets bumped. So Fox Regional has a lot of homes, a lot of people watch it, but it's very hard to know when you're on. And San Diego, I don't think San Diego was on. Was it on anything? Again, you're looking at a guy that's in the industry, and I don't know if it was televised. The Cowboy Channel didn't cover it, did they? I don't think
I don't
so.
know. I do.
There was some of that, but let's take one step back before we get into our overall conversation if we could. So I have two little tiny pieces of housekeeping before we just go all in for the rest of the show on this topic, if I could, because there's two little things that I just want to mention. One, we're recording today on January 21st, and yesterday was the 50th Cowboy Downhill in Steamboat Springs. That's pretty cool. That's been a fun thing for Cowboys, I mean, for half a century. And when I think of that, I will always think of Larry Mahan and Billy Kid, right? That they were like the original gangsters on that. But that's a cool thing. That's been a lot of fun for National Western Cowboys for a really long time. And the other thing I wanted to say that I think is a good thing as we get into fragmentation and different things, cool, is that 2025 we're going to have the 10th anniversary of what started as the Junior National Finals Rodeo, and then for, I guess we'll say, political reasons, became the Junior World Finals. And in this 10th anniversary year, it's going back to being the Junior NFR, and I'm really happy about that. And Oat and I do the Junior Steer Wrestling, and it just feels it's unifying and cool. And if I'm a kid, I would love to be a contestant at the Junior NFR instead of something else for political reasons. I'm just really happy that Las Vegas Events and the PRCA were able to come to terms on this, because I think it's good and unifying for rodeo. And if every chance we get to unify, we should, because anyway. So okay, so our greater conversation here, what constitutes cowboy progress? And it's part of it is because, just like we're skipping all over the place here, it feels like there's an every man for himself mentality in rodeo right now. And the question is that what's best for rodeo? Right. And so I think if we just visit for a minute on a few of the, recent and current events, random examples, but timely ones, I think that the point will be made, and the conversation had about what actually constitutes progress for Cowboys. So we talked quite a bit about Denver, but is there progress being made at Denver?
Um, well, I think just to clarify that a little bit, I like the term "every man for himself," but I think the one that's proper here is this whole "every rodeo for themselves," meaning, and from each rodeo organizer's point of view, their job is to do what's best for their rodeo and their fans and their sponsors. And we have seen historically, right, for a while now, and it really started, you really trace this back, correct me if I'm wrong, Kendra, but the first time we kind of saw organizational, or where Cowboys kind of jumped over here or over there, was, PRCA, BRO, PBR, right? There was a time when, are you riding in the BR, is it BRO the cool? Is it PBR the cool? The bull riders not going to the PRCA? Are they going to the PRCA? And now it's the newest idea. The good example was the Triple Crown. We had conversations with Calgary, Salt Lake on the Triple Crown. The WCRA decided to do it. And there's all these new ideas, and now there's some funding to make them happen for a little while. But the question is, if you don't do this stuff collectively and together, so let me just talk about Denver. I think, there's arguments about progressive rounds and stuff like that. The competition and the infield entertainment to the live fans here is compelling, and the crowd is loud and they love it. They are engaged. So from my perspective, right here in Denver, we're doing good for Western lifestyle. It's an entertaining product. Horses are bucking, some don't buck, but the horse, you know what I'm saying, Kendra? And everybody will come through the doors here. There isn't very many that don't enter Denver. Pretty much see everybody. So I'd say Denver's a win. It's on the Cowboy channel. The Cowboy channel's a win. There was a time we didn't know if it was going to be, really. It's a win. So I would say Denver goes in the plus market.
Okay, well, yeah. So okay. Well, so
Well,
to take it a step back before the BRO PBR example of like, I don't know if fragmentation is the right word, but every man for himself certainly is. Back before that, remember all the way back when Cowboys would compete at before the PRCA, RCA rodeos, and also go to open or amateur rodeos. And then came a time where the mothership said, you can't do that. If you're an RCA member, you cannot go to amateur or open rodeos. And then came a time after that where we went to court, and it was the right to work law says you can go anywhere and everywhere, which kind of brings us to today and all these opportunities. It's like, I love an opportunity for Cowboys to make a lot of money, but the fragmentation has to be at an all-time high for, like you were saying, to keep track of all the changes all the time, to keep track of the formats, to keep track of it. I promise you there's a lot of Cowboys who are having trouble. And let's go to our next timely example, San Diego Rodeo. Okay, I've lived, except for 8.5 years in Colorado, my whole life in California, which was the original cowboy hotbed. They all lived here, the generation before me. And so okay, here comes the San Diego Rodeo. Well, like on at face value, I'm like, okay, well, this is good because in Southern California, we have a lot of trouble with animal welfare issues, and if we can do something really strong, and also, by the way, mesh our cowboy sport with a successful professional Major League Baseball team, the Padres, this seems like a really wonderful thing. And I didn't get to see all of it because somehow my TV is set to like record everything that has anything to do with rodeo, but it won't do reruns. And so sometimes a glitch gets me, but so I didn't get to see the last day, but I saw a couple perfs of it that did record. And
what'd you
so
watch
my
it on?
understand Cowboy Channel.
So
And
it
my
was on the
So was
Cowboy
it.
understanding,
channel. Okay.
it was, but so these are the little takeaways that to me that kind of stuck. Well, one, I do really wish I could get more information, and I tried. I tried twice to reach out to people, and I wasn't able, to get as much information as I would have loved. My understanding is it's some sort of a combined efforts with the San Diego Padres and C5 Rodeo, but I don't know who the right person is. I reached out to the media contact they gave me, but have not heard back. But anyway, my understanding is that on Saturday night, without a concert, there were 30,000 people watching a rodeo. That's great. That's super cool. In Southern California, especially, that's a wonderful thing. Over 800,000 paid out. Outstanding. I'm still flummoxed as to who got invited because there didn't seem to be a rhyme or reason. It wasn't like, oh, there were X many from this year or this, and there were random people in every event. I have no idea who all won. The one person I think I do know, just based on accidentally finding out, was that a barrel racer named Jordan Driver won all 3 rounds on a very young futurity horse. Okay, super cool. But so a lot of the concepts wonderful, and also in the fight that is always, the war in Southern California for rodeo to roll. Um, Really wise that they brought in charros and Native American culture and had huge support. There were Indian tribes that were sponsors of this rodeo, and 3 Indian tribes, my understanding. And that's cool. It's smart, and that's a win. That's a win for rodeo. And so, but I'm certain that the Charros stepped up in a big way and helped save rodeo when a lot of the LA rodeo ban stuff was going on. So, but I know that on Sunday they had a top 8 and they had a final 4. But again, I don't know who got invited, and I don't really know who won. But I would just love, somehow, this is part of the issue of the fragmentation thing. Like, I want to know everything that happened there, and I can't find it. But it seems like the contestants that did get to go, were happy about it and liked it. So I like that, and I think that the person who won the final four got 20,000. I love that. So it was not a PRCA sanctioned event, but so there's a lot to like about it. And also a takeaway from it is that there was talk from C5 about this possibly 2025 possibly being Virgil's last year out there bucking, which is kind of a that's kind of be one to watch. But anyway, so okay, do you want to any comment or do you want to go to the next example?
Just to clarify, so for some of the listeners, then you go to the next example, or I can go to the next example. It was
Okay.
not sanctioned by the PRCA. So just so if you're not a diehard rodeo person, remember that the PRCA collects the winnings for the year, and that's who dictates who's the top 15 to go get crowned world champion. We've had this conversation on this podcast before. There's a lot of quote unquote world champions out there, but the real world champions come from the NFR. That's just a fact. So that money didn't count. And flipping back real quick to the fact that what for these rodeos that want to do something that doesn't fit in the rule book of the PRCA, right? Let me give you an example. I want to have the calf ropers rope the calf and untie the calf in 3 seconds because we don't embrace that they need to stay down 6 seconds. That's an example, right? The PRCA says, no, you cannot be approved if you don't do that. And XYZ Rodeo says, but we need to do that in our market. So then they go out and they do a non-approved rodeo. Now, one would think, well, but here's the deal. Because the Cowboys can go anywhere they want, if you have enough money and you invite a cowboy and the cowboy wants to go out there and win that money, then they're going to show up. Then said rodeo has just as good a contestants, right, for the fans, didn't have to follow the rule book. And so hence is what has created everything that we're going to continue to talk about today.
Fair. And also, I the markout rule in San Diego, as another example, it was a 5-point deduction if you miss one out instead of a disqualification. And I don't know also how much of rodeos who decide to go out on their own, how much of it is because they want their own rules, and how much of it is because they don't want to pay the PRC the sanctioning fee. Is that 6% now or more
It
of
is
the total
6%.
purse?
It is
6%? Okay.
6%, but who cares? Because it's coming out of the Cowboys' pockets. I mean, I used to have that. I had that fight at Salt Lake City. I wanted the 6% that I'm given my prize money. I wanted that 6% to go back to the Cowboys and Cowgirls' pockets. But you know what? They don't fight for that. It's their association, right? It comes out of their check and they know it. And most of them don't even know it. Some of them get a check from the rodeo secretary and don't even realize that 6% of that
Okay.
went to the association.
And I'll say from the contestant's point of view, the feeling my whole life has been, well, you can throw a ruckus over that if you want, and then you're going to go first at the next 10 rodeos you go to, and don't act like it's never happened because it has.
No, I get it, but I'm just saying from a committee standpoint, because I was one of them that fought to give those Cowboys back 3% of that 6%. There wasn't one cowboy or cowgirl that fought with me on that. So what do I care? We give away
There,
$800,000, and you can do the math. 6% of that goes to the association instead of the Cowboys and Cowgirls, and I could care less now.
I've seen countless young cowboys come up, cowgirls too, with fire in their belly. They're going to fight the good fight. They're going to change the world. They're going to do all these wrongs, and they get so blackballed and beat down. Even people who get on the board sometimes, historically, not talking about today, but it's happened a lot over the years. I remember Rod Lyman being the chairman of the board, and he was going to change it all for every right was going to be wrong. And he finally tucked his tail and walked away because he was so beat up for years. Like, oh, you think you're going to do this? And he got gunned down, gunned down, gunned down. So it's
Absolutely.
not like the contestants aren't bitches if they don't stand up and boycott. Because by the way, we've seen a lot of boycotts where the next 15 people in line are standing on the street corner waiting to replace you.
Mm-hmm.
And it
So,
takes you a year to get back in, and some of them never got back in.
yeah. So, okay, we better keep moving, but I mean, yeah, this
Well,
does get us
let's
both.
keep looking at the
Okay.
different types of events out there, right? That
Okay.
are, and because they're all happening right now. So
Yeah.
roll on.
So, okay, so another one that I just watched, the American Contender Tournament West Regional Finals at the South Point. Okay, here's my very fundamental, and this was on FS1, Fox Sports 1. Um, and sometimes this aired in a very timely fashion. Sometimes there's a delay on that, and I think that frustrates some people, but I'm sure there's always a reason. But the big things that jumped out first on my basic understanding of this tournament finals is that uh, April 11th. Okay, so there's a East, West, and Central regional finals. This one in Vegas was the West regionals, and then there's Lexington, Kentucky for the East, and Central is in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I believe. And the top five from each of these three regional finals are going to meet up April 11th at Globe Life Field. And then there's like a contender round on April 12th. I think the American's April 12th, I think. So anyway, this is
Right,
all
right back to the no spinners comment. Keep going.
Yep,
yes.
11th and 12th.
And
I just
so
looked it up.
okay, so again, these things that change, that there are tweaks to formats every year, it's hard for even the players to follow sometimes. But anyway, so when they have that 15 people, five each from those three contender tournament finals, meet up the 11th at Globe Life of April, then the top five from the 2024 World Standings, they're all gonna go head to head to figure out who goes on to the American, right? But here's something that has happened the last few years where, quote, contenders who are not seeded from the previous year's world standings get to rope ride, run, whatever for $1 million, right, at the Americans. So a big one. There were three, big ones that stood out to me. That okay, on the 2024 NFR broadcast team for Teton Ridge were included Luke Branquino and Casey Field. Both of them came out of retirement. Casey, only a year removed or whatever. Luke, I think it was 3.5 years removed, and they came back and made their way to this West Regional final in Las Vegas. And by the way, both of them advanced the Globe Life. That's you know that's a pretty big one. Also back, and Casey was like, he's won the American three times, and he said, "I'm still retired. This is just a proper retirement for me," is how he put it. And the way I understood it is that he's saying he didn't love the way his last ride went at a PRCA rodeo. So it's for different reasons. But you know how Josh Edwards retired last year from being a pickup man, as the pickup man of the year at Fort Worth, and then picked up the American because he'd given his word that he would do that. Well, this is a little bit reminiscent for different reasons, and it's a contestant. Casey's saying he didn't love the way his very last PRCA rodeo went. So he's trying to put the final exclamation point on his Hall of Fame career by winning the million at the American is basically uh, what he's saying, and
Okay,
he's
well,
saying,
that's a great narrative, and I'm not questioning what Casey's saying, right? I mean that's good. That's a good way to approach it. However, if you start to look at the nuts and bolts for a Luke Branquino or a Casey Field or Stetson at this point, remember, people, on how the American works. This much I do know. They invite the winners from the NFR. Those guys don't, and ladies, they don't get to play in the $1 million bucket. They play in the $100,000 a discipline bucket. Okay. They don't have a shot at that. And then, and I helped with this a little bit. And then there was basically, think of it as the Pro-Am. The contender tournament is an opportunity for people all over to work their way to Globe Life Field, and they get to play in the $1 million bucket. You got a guy like Casey who still believes, and I believe can probably win this. Why would he not, right? Be what? Who could argue that he shouldn't go ride 4 or 5 or 6 horses with the potential to win $1 million? Luke Branquino. Why wouldn't he bulldog 6, 8, 10 steers to win $1 million? Now remember, if there are multiple winners at the American, they divide that million up. So you got to be a contender that got in, and the only contender to win to get the whole million. Otherwise, they divide it up if you haven't played in this game and seen it. So, and Stetson, holy moly, right? Like if I was good enough to do that, I'd be like, well, that cut it in half, right? Yeah, you're pretty darn sure Stetson's going to go in there and go all the way.
For Stetson Wright to be $1 million contender is wild, and I thought it was cool. His words. He's like, most people say, when they can't do what they love, that they're hungry, and he's like, I'm deprived. I've been starving. Like I've never craved rodeo as bad as I do now. Well, he won the regional finals in Vegas, and you don't see this sort of thing much from Stetson Wright, but like he waved his free arm at the crowd when when the whistle blew. Like he was pretty pumped, and he said something about he started to kind of like cry in his interview, and he was like, 7 months ago, I was told I need to find a new career. So forgive me if I'm being a little emotional. This stuff, this is like made for TV stuff. And by the way, coincidental, whatever, the horse Casey Field Drew got on in Vegas for all of this was Legacy Pro Rodeo's Bill Thrasher, and apparently that was the last horse that he'd gotten on at a PRCA rodeo before. It's like, yeah, this is like a made for TV sort of thing.
So here's what I'll say. Oh, go ahead, Greg.
I got a quick question. So when you guys, because I know you were kind of involved in this a little bit, Tommy, maybe not from the start, from when they first started the contender tournament, but was your idea and your goal to allow these champions who may have not had a chance to get in with their NFR, whatever qualifications, to have the shot at $1 million? Or was it more of like a smaller amateur type competitor to get a chance to compete with the big dogs, and if they win, they get rewarded for it?
I think for me, all along, it's been both. Because there's been splinters, which we'll talk of this platform when we talk of the WCRA and what it is. When we did the Utah Days of 47 and the two 18-year-olds beat everybody and won the team roping and won at Progressive and made their first 50,000, that's cool in a lot of different ways. It's cool to be back there with them and say, great job. It's a cool story on TV. They had an opportunity to get there that they might not have had. So I think it opens up huge opportunities from that standpoint. But changing directions a little bit because I can't get past this. When we look at these guys ride, so Casey, I watched Casey's ride at the American. There's rust there. Tim O'Connell came here to the National Western. There's age and rust there, and those guys might get mad at me, but but Stetson, this kid's overly talented, still young. Now looks like he's healthy. I mean, Tilden Hooper, got on here, and so Luke's run. So I watched on Susha. I watched Luke's run at Vegas at the contender tournament deal. I wouldn't call that that wasn't the Luke Branquino I remember throwing steers. And then I had heard that he had a really tough steer. In his words, I think, and again, this is secondhand, I've heard stuff. So this is not fact. This is Tommy Joe narrative. But in the video I saw, that wasn't a tough steer. Now it is interesting. Of course, you had Luke on stage, you had Casey on stage, you had Stetson on stage, and then they're in these events. Well, that's what I would do if I was marketing Teton Ridge and the American, right? You can sit there and go, oh, blah, blah, blah. Now, as long as there's not any funny business in there, right? As long as as you have accurately said, Kendra, as long as when they're drawing, the room is open, then good, right? So
I've even gone so far as to say when there were some sketchy situations for huge money and stuff, it's like if I were you guys, besides having the room open, I might like FaceTime live it or something just to 100%. If you're clean, then daylight is the best disinfectant. Let everybody see. Let everybody
amen.
witness
Love
it.
that.
Do not go
Love that.
behind closed doors. I another thing about the deal that just went down in Vegas that I thought was fun is seeing, Wasey Shala, who just made his first NFR in the bull riding, ride bareback horses, because I hadn't seen much of that before. And it could be really fun to see, Stetson Wright in two rough stock events and Wasey Shala in two rough stock events. That could make a really interesting coming off the heels of a timed event race in
Absolutely.
2024 for the all around. That kid's no slouch in two
Absolutely.
events. And so that's pretty fun. I also believe that there's something about Stetson. He's moving on as a, clear or whatever the judges thought was a clear winner in Vegas. He's going to go to the regional finals in Lexington and Tulsa to try to make the American as a contender in the bull riding. So that's kind of fun,
Smart.
you know.
Very smart.
Mm-hmm.
Very smart. And he
Anyway,
will. He will. He'll make it. Yeah, they're
so
weak and brilliant. So we're running a little heavy here. So I'm going to throw out
okay.
one, and that is this Kid Rock Rodeo that I went and watched at Arlington. That is, in case you're wondering, we'll give you a little background. So the PBR has had really good success with team bull riding. They've had success. You can sit back in your living rooms and say, but the fans like it. The bull riders like it. Team bull riding has been well received. We can argue on if it's the best live product or not, but I actually think it's pretty good. But that's personal narrative, has nothing to do with fact. Anyway, so they got this Kid Rock Rodeo. Well, now the PBR and the WCRA, well, the PBR, I think, actually the PBR. So WCRA has a team, which allows them to continue to give a reason to be a part. Their process is you've got an app on your phone. Any rodeo you go to, you pay a small fee and you get credit for wins at all. And they do have a huge database of rodeos. Anything, potlucks, timed event. They have scalings. If you pay your fee for Denver, it's more. But you win more points if you win Denver, and if you do the open, you pay less, but you get less points. So it's an interesting concept, and you put but you're still entering twice, right? That money is being put together with additional money. In fairness to the WCRA, a lot of their own money has come out of their pocket to make the purses. It hasn't been driven just on their applications or nomination fees. So the WCRA has a team, is what I'm getting at. You got PBR, they want to create team rodeo. That's what Kid Rock Rodeo, it's team rodeo. They want to replicate what they've done in bull riding, in rodeo with teams. Now, Corpus Christi. For instance, in the barrel racing, this is where we take a step we did it with Toughest Cowboy, way out there. They put up a stoplight, red, yellow, green, go. And you have to start your horse and go, and on the timed events with the red, yellow, green. And they're doing this, I think, at Corpus Christi. Now, I don't know if they're doing it at the overall event or it's just a qualifier. Again, sorry, we don't have all that information, but it's just as hard for us to keep track of it as issues.
Is this head-to-head competition, or is it?
In the barrel racing, here's the deal. It was interesting to me that some of my insiders were letting me know that Sissy Wynn, she qualified for the Kid Rock from Corpus last year in Arlington and turned it down. And the only thing, and she's not going to Corpus this year. And it must be that she doesn't like this red light, green light, or, red light, yellow light, green light thing. I don't have any fact, but it is obvious that she doesn't participate. Sissy Wynn doesn't in these events. But it's another example of a whole nother concept that the PBR is going to push this rodeo. They're going to start trying to have Kid Rock rodeos all over this team rodeo concept.
Can I ask this? What was you were there? Was the barrel race? Were there two full patterns out there in the arena at the same time? Barrel patterns, where two people were running at the same time?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I don't think that they're running head to head now. I think they're running with the lights, but not at the same time. But that was kind of the novelty of it. Like in the bulldogging or the team roping, the pin was wide enough because it's a football field that when you saw the headers catch at about the same time, you were watching who advanced in real time. That part was cool. There was a lot of it that was confusing. Like there was a bunch of it, and Luke was the quote commissioner. Like there was a lot of stuff going on, right? Of the concept of it. And again, a whole nother idea that people spend a lot of money in and a lot of time in, and they believe in it. But we've got all of it's like going to the Thanksgiving table, Kendra, and you've got a pumpkin pie, you got a coconut cream pie, and you've got the pecan pie, which, by the way, the pecan pie is the staple. I mean, you can
Well,
consider
can
the
I?
pecan pie
I
PRCA.
want to. I want to add to this by the fact that I received a press release like 30 seconds before we got on this recording call from the PBR that uh, that there will be a first ever Kid Rock's Rock and Rodeo qualifier at the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo on January 23rd. In other words, this week. So they're just up the ante, right?
Yeah,
Um,
they're doing Fort Worth and Corpus as qualifiers for it, the way I understand it. And there may be more. And that's to go to Arlington to do it again.
okay, but here you
Well,
have a non-sanctioned Kid Rock Rodeo is joining forces with WCRA sanctioned rodeo in Corpus Christi, PRCA sanctioned rodeo in Fort Worth, Texas. The fragmentation is we're splintering everywhere, right? It's
well,
really go ahead.
my question is like, how do you have qualifications for team events? If this is supposed to be a rodeo team, is it more like a tryout?
Well, they did a draft. So I don't know the answer to that. Maybe by qualifying you get in the draft and you get drafted by one of the teams because they did a
Okay.
draft last year and picked their teams. But um let's just get to the point.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that.
We could literally have a podcast on each one of these different styles, types of competition, the pros and the cons. But let's take pro sports, Kendra and Greg. And this was said to me a long time ago by a very respected, famous TV producer. Until rodeo combines itself and gives a clear pathway to the world champion, right? That the non-endemic, remember that's the non-people that watch Cowboy Channel 24/7 can follow. Well, if you look at what college football has just done, which has been successful, they went from all these different, right? All these different Big 10, Big 12, Big 17, SEC, all of that. Well, now they have a playoffs. They have a playoffs where you got to be good to get there. You do a lot of it to get there. And then it's you got to win to continue. And sports fans like to figure out a player and then follow them up the deal. And that's hard in rodeo, especially even harder now when you've got all of these other things going on that are great. You were very complimentary of the event in California. And Kid Rock's Rodeo they might have had 30, they might have had more people than that. Most of them there to watch Kid Rock, but lots of people, right? But when you've got all of these different things, If you're just kind of a part-time, you're a no spinner, you listen to it, you listen to all this stuff, and you decide you want to get involved, but then there's so many different pies to choose from. You know, it will be a great day in rodeo when everybody, don't know that it'll ever happen in my lifetime, gets in a room and lays down their personal interests and collectively does what's best for the life, for the lifestyle and the sport, if you want to be a sport. Otherwise, you're just great events, right, Kendra? You're really great events all over that really entertain the fans and give opportunities to win a lot of money. But it's going to be really hard to call yourself a sport until you separate the greats from the not so greats, until you start to say, look, you're in this group. You're remember we have the conversation about minnows in a shark tank? So all that stuff
Well,
is part of this.
okay, so I guess we can go toe to toe on sudden death. It's a whole nother long conversation, heated at that, about um, world titles being any sort of sudden death situation. And part of that, why I would say that in rodeo, is there are so many, variables beyond anybody's control. It's, you know, college football. I mean, there's a football field, and I get it. I mean, it might be snowing, it might be raining, it might be home field advantage, it might be all these different things, but you surely, we learned in the 70s that it was a terrible idea to make world titles sudden death. I think, that's a whole nother conversation that we don't want to go down,
I'm
but
not I'm
yeah.
not saying to make, let me clarify.
Okay.
Here's what I think. You have to make it simpler for people to pick a favorite and follow them. And if you compete in 200 rodeos, so I think that the playoff series that they've started is a good move in that direction. Compete, win, drive, beat all the odds, get into this rodeo. And this rodeo means something because it pays a lot, which actually pays your bills at the ranch. And it's worth something to win that. And the person can still take the back roads and drive 60,000 miles and have $200,000 in their credit card to get to the NFR, to make 200,000, to pay their credit card off so they can start over, drive 40,000, 100 million miles again. Or a guy like, I'm making it up, a Casey Field, right? Or whoever, right? That would have the option of getting there a different way and making it a little easier for the fans. Besides, I mean, all we can do is look at the top 15. That's the only way you really know what's
Well,
going on, Kendra. You can't go find it and watch them.
but
You just look
again,
at who's winning.
but it's, it's not black and white to me. Even the playoffs at the end, which, by the way, years ago used to be, the freaking Cow Palace was the playoff to the NFR in San Francisco. But we love the big money. It's very exciting when you get toward the end and you have Puyallup and Sioux Falls and all that. It's all very exciting, but and it's made for TV. It's also for every, like, this is a sensational story. This is stealing the headline story. There's also some heartbreaks where Joe Bob ate pig and strings was in the top 15 from start to finish, and he got bumped out because somebody just won 35,000 on the last day of the regular season. And I'm not saying you to stop progress. I'm absolutely never saying that. But it is not as simple as it might seem to heavily weight a few events. Of course, in my perfect world, we would have, a lot more, Salt Lake City, Houston, San Antonio caliber, more Calgary caliber events during the year, and it wouldn't be so heavily weighted on just such a small handful of events where it really does matter in every event what you draw. In barrel racers, whether you were first or last, or do they drag in the middle, um, so I I'm old school,
I appreciate that. The thing is, our product is so unique that we try to force it into the sports category, right? But it's unique. I say this all the time as a producer. I'll go produce anything besides a rodeo. It's way hard. We're dealing with animals and weather and technical equipment and cowboys and drama and emotion and ground conditions and on and on. Like the amount of things you have to worry about to put on a rodeo compared to a soccer tournament,
Right.
right? So we say we're a sport. These guys are athletes. Yes. The animals are athletes. Yes. But we don't have umpires because umpires simply say he made the first down. It's black and white. He made the first down. The
Well,
ball is past it. But you have judges that, so everything you're saying is true because judges are judging it based on their opinion. And half of the time I don't agree with it.
and there are varying levels of experience and everything else. But the thing, what we do, yes, we're a professional sport, but some of the coolest things about rodeo are non-straight mainstream sport, and that's the tradition and the heritage and the roots and going, Americana and old-fashioned values and our handshake is our bond and all these things is some of the coolest things about our cowboy sport. And sport, yes, but man, it's so much more than that. So anyway, I would love for my closing remarks on this to, I found something, a little short passage that I would love to just read to you guys because I feel like we need to make sure that what we're doing, what we, the new things we're trying, it's, we're going to try things and some will work and some won't, but we need to really try to work, like you mentioned, toward the greater good of things that are actually progress and learn from history because when we don't learn from history we repeat our mistakes, right? So I would love to read this short passage because it reminds me of the fact that bell bottoms were hip when I was in college and now they're hip again, but they were out for all that time in between. And I went to college a long time ago. So, okay, I'm going to just read this to you. Rodeo organizations remained fragmented until the late 1920s when the Rodeo Association of America, comprised of rodeo committees and promoters from across the U.S., named its first champions. The first true national cowboys organization emerged in 1936 when a group of cowboys and cowgirls left a performance at the Madison Square Garden and boycotted the promoter's next rodeo in Boston Garden. They forced one of the biggest rodeo producers of the times, Colonel W.T. Johnson, to listen to their demands for better prize money and judges who understood rodeo. Now we're in 2025. We're darn near 100 years later, and we're still having the same conversation. So born old school, you know, respecting my elders, whatever. I am all for progress and things being better, but I just don't want to repeat. I don't want to circle the wagons 100 years later and go, oh, that didn't work in 1929. We're doing it again, you know?
Yeah, I agree. My last comment on this is that it's confusing. I don't care how, putting all that aside, it's confusing when you have multiple major events that that are not relevant to crowning a world champion. That's confusing for a sports fan.
And yet,
The American doesn't really mean anything for crowning the world champion. That is just to somebody outside, right? That hadn't heard all this baloney. And like, seriously?
but they can go
What?
there that day and have a blast. And that's where I think we get caught in some of the weeds when people tell me that, okay, committee people, everybody wants to see the winner. That's why we're going to have these formats. Well, I'm sorry, but when you go to a rodeo, there are plenty of rodeos that we have that it might be packed with tourists. It might be half the people in the crowd might be at their first rodeo. The fact of the matter, I think we learned in part from 2016 that most people that go to rodeos, I mean, the NFR is hardcore fans. Most people that go to rodeos are there to take their kids there once a year and have a good time and see some cool horses and bulls and cowboys and cowgirls and all this and put on a show. And now whether you do what like Reno's doing now, where a victory lap of whoever won in every event that night is good enough. Those people aren't going, well, gee, I wonder how this factors into the world championship race. No, those people they're not that far. They just want to be entertained for a couple hours today.
Because is it the chicken or the egg? We're going to go on too long here. But if you take the people that we love, that we know personally, and you expose them to the world, then the world will love them as much. And when they come to that rodeo, it goes right back to our no spinner. Most of those people in the stands can't even find out who's winning, losing, where a rodeo is being watched. That's the reason that it's still considered just a show, right? Because we don't give our fans the opportunity to become vested. I like Josh Allen because I've heard him talk. I've seen him. He seems like my kind of guy. You don't get to do that in this game.
So on one hand, we have fragmentation, maybe harder to follow. On the other hand, we don't have competition is healthy. Healthy competition is healthy, right? So maybe, competition on the flip side, there are pros and cons to everything. But on the flip side, some of this healthy competition will keep people honest, keep people pushing for more, keep people trying to do better, which does result ultimately in progress.
I agree. Greg, anything on your end? Otherwise, I'll wrap it up for this one.
Yeah, just a real quick thought I was having. I think the fragmentation from because I'm not a diehard rodeo fan. I am a fan, but I'm not really deep into it. But from my point of view, there's so many different events. There's so many different competitors. It's really hard to kind of focus. Like instead of you're a football fan, you got your football team, you know who your quarterback is, you can follow it. Nice and easy. Rodeo is a way bigger system and a way, so on our side, we need to figure out how to simplify that for people to, be able to follow like the Casey Fields and the Stetson Wrights and some people that don't get as much exposure as those guys because, maybe they're just as good, but they don't do the big events and they don't, so
Yes.
That's kind of my thought on that.
And we all know too that a lot of those people and the fans love it when they see a local guy who works at the hardware store roping, and maybe he doesn't do as well as Tyler Wade and Wesley Thorpe that day, but they might cheer louder because they went to high school with them or something, and so it's making everybody happy is tough, but these are important conversations.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's the key. No Spin Rodeo was originated and continues to go with one simple platform, opening up communications about our industry and hot topics on it and talking through it. As long as we continue to have conversations, neither one of us in this podcast nor a lot of the other experts out there on your couch are completely right. It's a very difficult waters to navigate. We are growing. There's more money in it. Rodeo is a fantastic sport / entertainment / family product. It will never take anything away from us no matter how we do it. Maybe we ought to get out of the weeds and just fly up in clean air for a while and enjoy our time and quit talking about all this junk that seems to be circle after circle after circle.
Well, and
so,
yes, your kid, Cowboys are the coolest, Cowgirls too. Your kid, you take them to an NBA game, your kid cannot walk up to LeBron James, but by golly, your kid can walk up to Shad Mayfield.
That's absolutely right.
Freaking cool.
And he'll talk to him.
Yeah, and that's
it is cool. Well, this is our episode number 47 of No Spin Rodeo. Thanks for joining us. Remember to live in the moment. Maybe get out of the weeds a little bit. Just enjoy the fact that we all have a great life in front of us, ahead of us. We love what we're doing. We love our family and our rodeo family. Until we talk again, we'll see you people in 2 weeks. No Spinners, shoot us a note. We'll talk about it. God bless you all.